Okay, so this is the card design dragon that we were doing. This is part 2. Now then, you can see that I'm using these pens, lining pens. Now then, I did have a set over here, I think, if I can reach them, which I can't, which I could show you if I can get to them. Right then, these are the pens I was talking about. Now I got a set of these, and they come in different sizes, different thicknesses. So you've got 8.8, which is obviously the thickest, and it goes right down to 0.1, which is the finest, and they're quite useful for when you're doing these types of drawings, illustrations, to highlight and go over any sort of blemishes that you might get. Now, I think once you've finished, and you tend to want to sort of blend in edges and things. Now this is a blender, so you can actually blend the ink in these brush pens. So if you do end up with any sharp edges of colour, you can blend it in like so. Now, very useful to get one of those. Now there's a huge range of these coloured brush pens, and I didn't, if I'm honest, get all of mine all at once. I think what we're going to do, we're going to use the 0.3 to 0.5 of these black line pens. Now I didn't get all these brush pens all at once because, like I said, they're very expensive. You can buy sets, but I mean really, you're talking, if you buy a set, a big set, you could go up to 100, 160, 170 plus pounds, which is fine if you're earning big pots of money from it. But when you're doing it maybe for a hobby or a bit of fun, then it's a little bit expensive, because it's like anything else. I used to work and do designs and posters and things for a car accessory shop in Yeovil, do all their price tickets and things like that. And one day they were short-staffed, so the owner said to me, "Could you help if we get short and serve people?" I said, "Not any problem whatsoever." And I always remember the first chap I went to serve walked up to me quite brightly and smartly and said, "Here, mate, how long do these batteries last?" Now, if you think about that, that is quite a silly question, isn't it, really? Because I did actually say forever if you don't use them. And he didn't think that was terribly funny, but there we go, I did. But I wasn't asked to serve and help after that, but there we go. Now then, I don't know if this is going to work. This might be too severe, but we're going to try it anyway. Sorry, I'm losing you out of the frame here, aren't I, messing about? I should be more organised, but I'm very sorry to say, if you want an organised artist, you're going to have to go elsewhere. Because I'm just not that one. No, I don't know if this is going to blend in enough, but I'm going to try it anyway. Because I want to show you this blending. Because what I wanted to do was get some red on the back side of these horns. Because what we're going to try and do in a minute is put some background as well with these brush pens in. You see, now that you can see the blending now, can't you? I think you probably can. That's the effect that we were going for, you see. Blending that out. So it kind of bleeds in. So instead of having that real sharp defined edge there, you can bleed it out like so. Now then, we're going to do this sort of background sky. Now normally when you would do a sky, you'd start off, if you have a look when you're out and about and you've got a nice sort of view, it's lighter at the ground level, and as the sky moves up it will get darker. But in this picture we're going to do it the other way around, because what we want is like almost like the fires of hell, furnace-y fires coming up here. And so what we're going to do, we're going to find a nice light colour, which we've got around here, which is practically an off-white, called it, actually is a pearl white, they call it. And we're going to, now we don't really want to go outside of the box with this, but what we're going to do is we're going to use it to come up between these horns here. And here, and what I'm going to do, I think at the top, very top edge, is just use the white of the paper. So what we would do, we'd come up like so, making sure that you can see what I'm doing. And then if you just sort of loosely dot it in to give that effect, it's going to blend in. You can use your blender in a minute to do this. Into this sort of white area right at the top. Now then, I think that's something like we want to do, because we can do this in stages moving down. Now, somewhere I've got several of these brush pens that are practically dried up, and they're perfect for doing this kind of thing, because you can do a nice light blend. But if we get the old blender out again, and we want the brush end, we can brush this up and blend it in. Now, another thing I would tell you about with these brush pens is they will bleed through paper. I'm using watercolor paper, so we should in theory be okay. But if you're using it in a pad, they can actually bleed through to the paper behind and mess up your paper, and they could actually go through several sheets. So what I tend to do is always put a sheet of paper behind the pad when I'm using, say, cartridge paper. But like I said before, this that I'm using now is actually watercolor. Now that's quite a pleasing effect, isn't it? Now what I'm going to do around the back here, I think, with these feathers, I think if I can find the colour I want, I think we're going to possibly add a bit of yellow and orange to the back here to get this background really fired up. I want to cut into that horn at the back here so we can get this real sort of fiery sky going. And like I say, you can dab it in to the edges there and keep that going like so. But see, the background could really propel your image that you want the focal point to be in a picture. Now, I've been told that sometimes when I paint pictures, they look just like photographs. Now, one of the tricks of doing that to get that effect, I find, is that if you do the background out of focus slightly, so blurred, in other words, and then you actually basically only focus on the actual image, your picture, your cat, dog, or whatever you're painting, tiger, lion, elephant, it will make it look more like a photograph. Because if you look at a photograph by its nature will only focus on the, I want to put a few white dots. Now these pens, I'll give you a tip about these pens. You want to get it running before you start to try and use it, and make sure there's not too much on the end, because they're a little bit unforgiving, or whatever the word is looking for, when it actually comes to use them. You can end up with a great big dot of white, or like I just got there, which is perfect. Now, see, if you add a little bit of white around that eye, without losing it onto the floor, you can actually see what I mean now. If I move the camera down a bit, you might even be able to see it a bit even more. So that's the eye, I think, more or less finished now. I mean, you could overdo that, and I've done it before myself. You overcook something, and then it's ruined. So sometimes it's best to say, right, that's enough. And I think for the eye, we've probably done that. Now, I want to try and do a bit more colour on these back tabs, because I'm not quite happy with the way that red is blended in. So we can make these go over it again and make it a bit darker. And that's getting a bit more like it now. Because I also, when I do pencil sketches, use blenders on the pencil. You can actually get blenders and you can blend in pencil and get some very pleasing effects. Now I think that's pretty much where we want to be with that, with those tasks.